Some unexpected breaking news as Bo Bassett just decommitted from the Iowa Hawkeyes. And you better believe that Penn State's going to be right back in the mix. And should they be considered the favorite to now land him?
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State wrestling, and as always, thank you so much for checking out another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State wrestling and Penn State football. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us a part of your regular routine. And if you're not an everydayer, become one. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. We are talking about Bo Bassett's decommitment from Iowa here and what it all means. Penn State is going to be in the mix. Obviously, Oklahoma State will be as well. Virginia Tech, anybody else? Melvin Miller, Keegan Bassett, Bo's younger brother. Where do they all end up? Lineup projections. We're going to get into the initial reaction to this by starting with the news, the breaking news here, as Bo Bassett is no longer a part of the 2026 class for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Bo was supposed to be that momentum shift for the Hawkeyes. Penn State's the dominant team. They're expected to be on top for the foreseeable future, mostly over here, but some people would say that, hey, somebody's going to break through at some point. Whether it's Iowa or Oklahoma State, they certainly think that they have their case, but Bo Bassett was supposed to be part of that momentum for the Hawkeyes. Iowa goes into Pennsylvania, recruits somebody that is right in Penn State's backyard, and this was obviously a big deal. Even if he didn't end up as, let's say, the most successful prospect, this was still a statement by Iowa for going into Pennsylvania, getting a highly touted prospect. No matter how you want to look at it, he is a top pound-for-pound prospect in the class of 2026, and Penn State would absolutely want him to be committed. Well, now everything's changed. Everything is different because he is back on the market. He is a free agent, and he very well could end up at Penn State. This gets really intriguing because I'm not sure what Iowa did to burn any sort of bridges. It seemed like this was going to be the path going forward, where not only Bo, but most likely Keegan, his younger brother, and Melvin Miller, stepbrother, as well, would all go from this Pennsylvania to Iowa pipeline. That seemed to be the idea. Melvin Miller released a top 9, included Iowa, and this is part of the breaking news as well, is that Miller re-released his top 9, but moved it down to a top 8 and just completely took out Iowa. So I have no idea what the Hawkeyes did, what the Brands brothers did to burn, to sever any ties here with the Bassett family. That is kind of what is the most surprising of all of this, is that Iowa must have a good relationship or a good rapport or a plan to where everybody can succeed. And Bo Bassett's recruitment is more than just Bo Bassett himself. I do think that if you were going to try and land Bo Bassett, so Penn State needs to be aware of this, that you're going to have to be able to recruit Melvin Miller, Keegan Bassett as well. So there are very few other schools that are going to be able to have an ideal path, an ideal outlook, because Virginia Tech was in Bo Bassett's Final Four originally. Ohio State's not even in Melvin Miller's now top 8. It's no longer a top 9 because Iowa's not there. No longer, they're not in a top 8. So this is really down to Penn State and Oklahoma State. Penn State is absolutely going to be in the mix. He's from Pennsylvania. He's a top 5, conservatively speaking, pound-for-pound prospect. I know that he was number 1 once upon a time as a consensus, but that's not the case anymore. And if you want my opinion, I would say that Jax Forrest is easily the number 1 prospect in this class. I think it's safe to say that Jaden James has jumped up to number 2 overall as a pound-for-pound prospect. You could make the case for Drayshawn Ross being 2 or 3, depending on who you ask. I imagine that Oklahoma State fans, people that cover Oklahoma State, would say Ross is 2, Jaden James would be 3. But somewhere in that order, it's Jax Forrest, Jaden James, and Drayshawn Ross. And then it's Bo Bassett, which, you fall a couple of spots, but he is still a highly sought-after prospect. Rutgers should try to get back into the mix if they would want to. I think Virginia Tech, but that's just for the sake of, trying to. Let's call it a last-ditch effort, a Hail Mary. I really do think this comes down to Penn State and Oklahoma State. David Taylor, it would make sense for him to try to bring Bo Bassett along with Keegan Bassett, Melvin Miller. And I guess I should reorganize that, as Melvin Miller is the class of 2027, Keegan Bassett's 2028. But if you're David Taylor and you want to win the ongoing battle against Penn State, hey, that's Jax Forrest's teammate. You can go bring his best, a good friend, teammate, all the way to Stillwater. So you know that Jax Forrest is going to be doing a lot of recruiting here. But also don't forget that Penn State has Sam Herring. Sam Herring's a top 20 prospect in the pound for pound in this class of 2026. He's also teammates with Jax Forrest, which means he's also teammates with Bo Bassett. They are all good friends. So this is going to be an interesting situation now between what happens. I got to imagine that Penn State would be the most likely destination between the two. And that's saying something right on the heels of this. But Bassett decommits. Let me finish with the last part about Iowa, and then we'll get into why Penn State should be the leader in theory going forward. Iowa, this hurts Iowa more than it helps a Penn State or an Oklahoma State, because Oklahoma State could absolutely win this recruitment, even though I think that Penn State would be the new leader in this situation. Iowa thought that they really had something here, that you were building that the Hawkeyes were building a pipeline into Pennsylvania. It was talked about how the Young Guns Wrestling Club would move and create this pipeline into Iowa, that you started and took a piece out of Pennsylvania and away from Penn State. And that's no longer the case. You not only lose Bo Bassett, but you lose Melvin Miller and, yes, Keegan Bassett in the process. So that's 3 years of highly touted, highly coveted prospects that can change your program, that can get you closer to Penn State and now Oklahoma State. This is why I've gone on the record multiple times saying, do not see Iowa as a threat to Penn State's dominance. The only school is Oklahoma State at this given time. How soon that happens, yet to be determined. Probably not anytime too soon, right? But Iowa, which seemed like it took 1 or 2 steps forward, okay, this has my attention, to now, this is very bad. This is very bad for them. This is a bad look, and it destroys everything that they were trying to build up. So the Hawkeyes, if I were an Iowa Hawkeyes fan, I would be the furthest thing from happy right about now. You do go back to the drawing board here. This changes a lot of things, but it also does, for what it's worth, it does free up some NIL. We knew that Bo Bassett, Melvin Miller, Keegan Bassett are going to command a lot of NIL money. That's the fact of the matter. So in Iowa's case, they're going to have to pivot. They thought they had a blueprint. Things significantly changed for them. But how do things significantly change for Penn State, for Oklahoma State? Why is Penn State the leader? What can Oklahoma State do to potentially get Bassett? We're going to talk about that and more coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or a high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. Are you new to FanDuel? Well, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. FanDuel is great to track your favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. So whether it's baseball, WNBA, golf, soccer, as I've already mentioned, FanDuel has it all. And even during the off season, you can bet on Penn State football. That's right. Win totals are set for college football teams. Do you think Penn State's going to have more or less than 10.5 wins? If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel. And remember, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. That's over at the FanDuel app or FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, let's talk about the pending recruiting battle between Oklahoma State and Penn State and why Penn State should be considered the leader at this point in time compared to Oklahoma State. Well, for starters, again, proximity. Bo Bassett, his family, they live in Pennsylvania. So it does help that Penn State is the home school, is the state school, and Oklahoma State is in the middle of the country. So that's a long ways away. So Penn State does win that battle. Proximity, location, that's a plus. Penn State wasn't far off. For what it was worth, back when this recruitment was going on, I was hearing that Penn State was a lean for Bo Bassett, and then Iowa came in and made this push because of the result that happened at the Bryce Jordan Center. That 30-8 loss really lit a fire under Iowa and the board members or whoever is running the wrestling operation there for the Hawkeyes. They did not like that. Enough was enough. And it's crazy how all of that is spiraling. That event doesn't even exist anymore now, with Bo Bassett being a recruit and not a commit anymore. But Penn State wants Bo Bassett, and Bo Bassett would want to go to Penn State. Penn State did make a significant NIL offer. Let's take Bo Bassett's word for it that the offers were comparable. So you know for a fact that the Nittany Lions did make a substantial NIL offer. Whether it was greater, you can make your assumptions about whether or not it was greater than Iowa's. Okay. However, again, Bo Bassett decommitted from Iowa. Just know that Penn State did have a competitive NIL offer at the time. That's probably going to stay the same. That offer is probably still there. I think I saw alleged numbers or a report. Again, this isn't from what I've heard, or these are just kind of alleged numbers that the neighborhood offer was $2 million, $2.5 million. Okay. Same thing with Oklahoma State. But why Penn State really leads in this situation has to do with being able to start right away, how loaded the room is. So this is a testament to Oklahoma State and David Taylor that 141, 149, where Bo Bassett would project in the immediate future, those weight classes are pretty crowded for Oklahoma State. They have loaded up and then some. So there is actually a clearer path at Penn State for Bo Bassett to potentially get in the starting lineup. And I know how crazy that might sound to Penn State fans. 141 between Masanosuke Ono or Marcus Blaze. All right, I'm not going to try to justify, who puts on weight here, who makes the weight cut. But there are plenty of options at 133 and 141. 149 is where it gets really intriguing because Shayne Van Ness is almost at the end of his Penn State career. Now, I'm not here to make any predictions or how this would all work out, but know that there is an opening at 149 when Shayne Van Ness is finished. And if you're Bo Bassett, you might want to try to push for 149 if and when you join Penn State as a true freshman. Again, I'm not here to guarantee anything. I'm not saying that, hey, Bo Bassett's going to commit to Penn State and be in Happy Valley tomorrow. But there is a more favorable path for Bassett at Penn State than there is Oklahoma State. You could get into a battle in theory with Shayne Van Ness in his final season. Who wins that battle? Leave that up for debate, right? That's for future podcasts and future discussions. But we're talking about the initial part of this. So initially, what comes to mind, if Bo really wants to be at Penn State and expects to start right away, I don't see a path for him. He's at about, 144 pounds? Okay, that's what he's wrestling at. I know that weight classes are different on the freestyle circuit, high school, and in college. But when we're talking about college here, well, you either got to go 141 or 149. There's no in between, right? So 149 makes the most sense because I don't see a place for him at 141. There are too many people initially for that 2026 season. We have to do so much projecting, so much assuming, right? Between anybody and everybody of how this lineup could shake out. But at 149, there's really no other challengers at this given time. And remember, Melvin Miller and Keegan Bassett are a part of this equation. In due time, Keegan Bassett's going to be a lightweight, 125, 133. Luke Lillidahl would be towards the end of his Penn State career when Keegan Bassett joins. Melvin Miller probably slots in at 174, 184. I think that's his ideal weight class for the start of his collegiate career. But this isn't just isolated to Bo Bassett. So when you're thinking about Bo Bassett's recruitment, you also have to factor in, well, how does Melvin Miller play into this? How does Keegan play into this? That's how you have to think about this. But for Bo Bassett specifically, Shayne Van Ness at 149 is who he would challenge as a true freshman. Whether or not he wins that battle is to be determined. I think Shayne Van Ness and Bo Bassett are pretty close, but I would still take Shayne Van Ness as going into his sixth year in college with all of that training. I don't doubt Bo Bassett's training, but when you're at the best wrestling program in the world and you are 6 years into your college career and Bo Bassett's just getting started, I got to imagine Bo Bassett's taking the red shirt. So this is where I will finish this conversation for now. And of course, we're going to have many, many follow-up conversations about the news and the way that it unfolds. Bo Bassett should want to come into Penn State and compete to try to be the guy at 149 right out of the gate. But know that it's not going to be a guarantee that you're going to get that spot. And I think he should be ready to accept a red shirt if that happens. Be open to the opportunity, and Penn State should welcome the opportunity to compete. It makes Shayne Van Ness better. It makes Bo Bassett better. If Bo Bassett were to lose that lineup battle, think about this. This could happen in theory with him, depending on what changes. We don't know for sure. I think there should be a battle at 157 between PJ Duke and Tyler Casack. But things may change where PJ Duke adds on the weight, goes through a redshirt season, and ultimately bulks up. Who knows? But we very well may see this battle right now in the present between Casack and Duke if Duke wants to go after that 157 spot. If Bassett wants to go after 149 as a true freshman in theory, then he's got to be ready to take a red shirt if he does not win that battle. And in my opinion, that would be best for Bassett long term. It just would. Go through the redshirt season. You get that year to develop 1 year at Penn State's program. And then you get 4 years with that 1 year, that one extra year of development to be at top level or be as close to it at that present moment. A red shirt would be good for Bo Bassett. PJ Duke's kind of his own, is his own, right? But Marcus Blaze would get better with a red. Anybody would get better with a red shirt. It would help them in time. But I think when there isn't a need for Penn State to have Bo Bassett right at 149, if he wins that battle, hypothetically, with Shayne Van Ness, so be it. All right, he's the better wrestler. But if he were to lose, a red shirt would not be a bad thing. It would be okay. And I think it would help him long term. So this gets really intriguing as Melvin Miller does not include Iowa in his newly released top 8. Bo Bassett decommits. Whatever the Hawkeyes did, oh my goodness. So that is where we will finish things here on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Talking about all things in the offseason, but there really is no offseason between football recruiting, now wrestling recruiting, and all of the offseason news that is coming forth here with Penn State involved. So we're going to talk about all of it each and every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us a part of your regular routine. If you're not an everydayer, become one so you don't miss out on any breaking news or any analysis. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around all of your favorite Penn State sports teams, whether that's wrestling, football, basketball, you name it. It is right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.